And now, in Revelation chapter 6, we finally come to the breaking of the seals. These seal judgments, there are 7 of them, incorporate the trumpet judgments to follow, the bowl judgments to follow. These 7 seal judgments in totality is the entire judgment plan of God in the future and the restoration of his creation. So it's a big deal. When the Lamb opens and when Jesus opens these judgments, judgment begins on earth. We see 4 horsemen. The scene then moves to the altar before the throne in heaven, where the souls of the martyrs are. And then in seal number 6, we scope out even more to all of creation, the heavens and the stars and the sun and the moon. And then don't forget, the 7th seal is the 7 trumpets, is the 7 bowls, and culminates in the second coming. It's like a big crescendo. So, Revelation chapter 6. Now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals. And I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder, "Come." You hear that a lot in heaven. And I looked, and behold, a white horse. And its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer. Now it just helps to understand that the next horse is going to be one of war. Because we have to ask, okay, what is this, or who is this one that comes out? Because a white horse sounds like, hey, this is a good thing. This is maybe Jesus coming back. In reality, I think it's the Antichrist. There's going to be 4 horses, 4 different colors. One is white, followed by red, followed by black, followed by this pale green gray, depending on how the context is, the color of death. And these 4 horses, these 4 horsemen, the image of that has already appeared in Scripture. The book of Zechariah, chapter 1, around verse 8, we are introduced to 4 other horsemen. They're not exactly the same. There's a white one, a red one, a black one, and a sorrel or a dappled horse. And they don't do exactly the same things here. But they seem to be these angelic beings, and maybe like the concept is the 4 corners of the earth, and they're either holding back or they're executing God's judgment. And so in this case, this white horse comes, and the horses are sort of stand-ins, imagery stand-ins for the effect of what's going to happen. And in this case, there's a person on the horse. Now, a white horse would be ridden by a victorious general. I mean, it's a beautiful white horse, and he's going out to conquer, and you get the image. But we're going to see throughout Revelation that there's going to be a false Jesus. It's called the Antichrist. He's going to pretend to be Jesus, but he's not Jesus. You can tell by his actions that he's not Jesus. Because what does he do? It's given to him a bow and a crown. Crown means authority. So he's given authority to reign on earth for a short period of time. And what is he going to do? He's going to wage war. Now, in the context of what follows, it doesn't sound like Jesus. It sounds like the beginning of Daniel's 70th week. This is the same guy who signed the covenant of peace in Daniel 9:27, who now turns around, breaks that covenant, and goes to war. So the white horse is probably this Antichrist, and he's been given authority to reign for a while. That's followed by the second seal. I heard a second seal, a living creature say, "Come." And out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth so that people should slay one another. And he was given a great sword. That's interesting. It's like, by the way, this whole image of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, that has really been in our, all cultures throughout, since it was written. They are yet to come. So you got this red horse comes. Now, if the white horse is coming and he's waging war, it makes sense that the red one would be the effect. So, boom, 1, Antichrist takes power. Boom, 2, he goes to war. And that's what we'll see. We'll see that the tribulation period, that as you especially hit the second half of the tribulation period, it is war like we've never known on this planet. And it's war that is caused by the devil and his minions. It's caused by the Antichrist. And it's the Lord that will come back into the midst of this and stop it. It was permitted to take peace from the earth. Notice it's permitted. It's being permitted by God. God is allowing these judgments. And we saw last time that, the day of the Lord in the Old Testament is coming because of Israel's sin and the nation's sin. God is moving against sin. So take peace from the earth. It's amazing to me that the cry in our nation right now is for justice and peace. The very thing that God wants to deliver. We're either going to usher it in our own way or we're going to accept it his way. What you see in Revelation is what happens if we try to usher it in our own way. Zoraida was permitted to take peace from the earth so that people should slay one another. And he was given a great sword. I'm going to come back to that point in a little bit. The third seal is broken, and the living creature says, "Come." And I look and behold, a black horse. Now, if you've got a conquer, you've got war, you've got a black horse, it's not surprising to find that there's famine, there's want. War disrupts supply chains. War disrupts crops. You have no peace, you have no food. And I heard what seemed to be the voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. Spend all your wages, all your day's wages, just to buy a little bit of bread." There's going to be want, there's going to be famine. That's what war always does. But then it says something interesting. Do not harm the oil and wine. Now, our culture is too far removed from this. We look at oil and wine and say, oh, that's maybe luxury, or, save the good wine. But in that society, oil and wine was the basic staples. So in other words, God is drawing a line over it. You can destroy the supply chains for the food, but you can't make them starve completely. Oil and wine. The next horse is the fourth, and the 4 horses together are judgments on the earth. The fourth horse, verse 7, when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, once again, "Come." And I looked and behold, a pale horse. Now the Greek term there for pale, it could be translated gray, it could be translated like a green, and it's going to depend on the context which way it goes. Now, why that is the case, I don't know. Gray and green are very different. But in this case, because it's death, you really know that it's like a sickly green or a pale gray. And that's what the horse is. Look and behold, a pale horse. And its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. That's just, Death and Hades always seem to be a pair that goes together. It's a euphemism to say, dying and eternal damnation. That's how we would put it. So people are going to die and be eternally condemned into hell. That's what he's saying. They were given authority, so now it's they. Okay, so it's either this metaphorical concept that there's going to be death, or there's angelic figures behind it who are actually going to kill. Kind of like the angel of death in the story of the Exodus. And God does send out angels to kill. Killed 185,000 Assyrians in one night when Hezekiah prayed, and the Lord heard his prayer, and he killed 185,000 Assyrians in one night. He did that himself. And so it's not unusual or uncommon for the Lord to do something like this. So it's either angels doing this or euphemistically, but look at the effect. They were given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword and famine and pestilence and by wild beasts. So a fourth of the earth is going to be killed. Now, we're also struggling right now with this pandemic. We haven't seen, there have been global pandemics, but in our lifetime, we haven't seen anything like this coronavirus. And now we have the charts and the abilities on the internet, and we see how many people are tested and how many people have died and what the ratios are. And it's nothing compared to what is coming. This is a global death. And of course it follows, war and famine. Of course there's going to be death like this. I want to go back for a second. Remember I said I would come back to the second horse. And I wanted to come back to it because it says its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth so that people would slay one another. Notice that they're slaying one another. The thought here is not a coming invading army. We shouldn't be looking at this time for where is the army going to come from. There are armies, we'll see them later. But in this case, it's the Antichrist comes, he sows this war, and it results in bloodshed, but the people are killing each other. What you're looking at is the effects of man's anarchy and societal decay in the face of this war. Now, the reason why I wanted to put it here is you see a quarter of the earth is going to die. Look at what we're facing now. I am not saying we are in the tribulation. Let me say that again. We are not in the tribulation. But patterns happen. And if you look at where we're at, we say peace and security. We've got the best economy. I remember in January, the State of the Union address, America's never been so strong. We've never been so powerful. We've never had so much money. And then bang, look what happened. And then look at how the streets are up there. We see people just shooting people for no reason at all. We see people beating people. We see a fear of anarchy in our streets and in our cities. And you're almost not even allowed to say that. This is the same kind of pattern that's going to happen in Revelation, but it's going to happen all around the world. When the Antichrist grabs control of the place and brings war, there'll be fighting and looting and who's going to be able to get fed today and who's not going to be able to get fed, and neighbor will turn upon neighbor. Let me say it again. This is the fruit of man's solution. Again, no justice, no peace is the right call, but you can't leave out Jesus. No Jesus, no justice, no peace. Otherwise, we're left with our own solutions and they'll never work. They will turn against ourselves. We will kill one another. We'll do it with dizzying rage because the devil himself is behind it. Don't think for a minute that your neighbor is the enemy or someone who doesn't look like you. They're not. They're being deceived. Everybody on this planet is a prisoner of war. The enemy is the guy on a white horse. It's the Antichrist, who's a representative of the devil, and the devil is our primary enemy. He's the one that sows this. Jesus said he's a liar and a murderer. He lies, he twists, he distorts. He makes us think we want one thing, turns us against each other. And he murders, has us kill each other, has us kill our children, has us strike out against the image of God, and tells us we can make a name for ourselves. We can fix this. We know, we're enlightened. We'll just make this difference and this program and that program. What we see in Revelation doesn't work. We can see there it doesn't work. Why do we think it will work now? This is a time for the church to pray. This is a time for the church to get down on its knees and pray. You remember the parable in Luke 18 with the persistent widow? The Lord teaches the parable so that teach people always to be persistent in prayer. And it was an unrighteous judge. He didn't know the Lord, but this widow kept pestering him all the time for justice. And so at the end of that parable, he says, well, you know, I don't know the Lord, but this woman is bothering me. And so I'm going to give her what she needs, what she's crying out for. I'm going to give her that justice just to make her go away. The real punch to that, well, let's go look at it. The real punch to that particular parable comes not in that she was just persistent in praying. And how many times have I heard that? It just, oh, this is all about, praying all the time. Yeah, it is. But look at what it says in Luke 18, verse 7. And will not give justice. Justice is what she was asking for. Will not give justice to his elect. It's us. Who cry to him day and night. Will he delay long after them? We cry for justice. That's what we're supposed to be praying for. And yet we're trying to solve it in every other way. Roundtable discussions and new programs and marchings. And the problem's in the heart of man. Blindness. The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers. They cannot see the light of the gospel. We think we can solve this. But look what happens in Revelation. Can't solve it. Back in Luke 18, the last verse says, and I tell you, he will give justice to them speedily. If you know Jesus, then you'll also know peace and justice. Nevertheless, the last sentence is the heartbreak. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? That's directed at, I believe, believers. Because it takes faith to get on your knees and say, we're going to solve this by turning it over to Jesus. We're going to be persistent before the throne of God. So we look at the news, we get angry. How much time have you spent in prayer? Where's our own hearts at that? Where's the church? The church is trying to fix this. The best thing the church can do right now is pray. That doesn't mean it's the only thing we do. But if we're not praying, then we got a problem. Because what we see with the breaking of the four seals in Revelation 6 is the failure of human society, resulting in anarchy and murder and death. And then we're open to every falsity and every lie till we turn against each other. These are serious times. Where we'll go next is the last two seals, number 5 and number 6. 5 is those before the altar of God who are murdered during the tribulation. And 6 will be the judgments that are start to be poured out on heavens themselves to show you this is a cosmic battle. I'll see you next time.